Then you have a Palisa who was married early, never had a voice in her marriage. You attract who you are. Sometimes you accept who you are. So the partner that you date measures your self-esteem. Your self-esteem tells us about your self-worth.
This is why your father called you ugly when you were a child.
Sometimes we get into relationships where we end up in prisons negotiating our own parole.
What is troubling you?
Nothing.
I really, with all my heart, was so confident with that matchmaking, especially Tsepo and Palisa. Tsepo as well, who very close to his mom, but devoid of his father so he's got a parental wound there, and he sort of uses food as comfort.
When you would count biscuits in the cupboard, I suffered in your hands.
As interest sort of decreases, so does the effort. Everyone had limited abilities. Okay.
Let's talk about that. There were people that had needs and wants and felt that their needs were not met, but
I'm not feeling him. I've never been attracted to that. That I cannot even...
Don't ever date if you're willing to trade yourself at a discount. I think we also a population of selective hearing.
Sure.
Portia did say that I have been hurt by the fact that I have gone against my values of what I want, and I was hurt by something that wasn't my choice in the first place through my marriage. That's why it's easy for you to show up as a woman, powerful in the boardroom but powerless at home.
I actually want to be the villain. I want to give him a taste of this person that he says I am.
How does that work?
So, for me to see another woman as an enemy, it means I have a problem with how I see my mother. Nguleko showed up as someone that is an Orthodox Christian, very religious, but in the same breath.
That's brutal. Did we see a mama's boy in Tsepo?
Yeah. You're not born a narcissist, you're not born manipulative. You're not born an anxious person, you become that.
Hello and welcome back to the Legacy Collective with Khanyisa. And if you've just joined us, welcome home. You're going to love it here. This is a platform where we speak about, heal from and transform our legacies. Legacies that have been passed down to us, legacies that we're living out to leave to the next generation. And joining me today is Thabang Mashigo, a therapist, an author, and an expert on Married at First Sight. And she does many other things that we're going to talk about today. Thank you for joining me, Thabang.
Thank you so much, Khanyisa. Thanks to you and your audience for availing the opportunity. It's an honor.
Can we heal together?
Can we definitely heal together?
Let's heal together. I think there's a lot of things that you have done in the past that we've seen you help people to heal in different ways. And I was telling you before we started shooting that the premise of our healing platform, this is a transformation and healing platform. And the premise of it is that a great man once said that if you don't work hard enough during the day, you will have nothing to eat in the evening. If you don't work hard enough during the day, your children will not have anywhere to sleep in the evening. And so we said, but why would anyone not sleep? Why would anyone sleep and not work during the day? What would make them not be effective in the day? So we went to the morning to say, what about the morning makes a person not to work hard? And so that in my mind is a life stage. So the morning would be childhood to maybe 25, 30, and the day would be 30 to 60, and the evening would be 60 to child time, right? So those are the life stages. And it's almost always about when you're trying to build things, whether it's marriages, whether it's careers, alliances, what about your morning is tipping over what you're trying to build in the day, right? So I want us to reflect on that today. But I know that right now the country is blasting with Married at First Sight, and I want us to go there. How have you been after that?
Tired.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I'm so tired. I think I didn't expect the attention
Okay.
that would come with a format of that nature from season 1 to season 2. I think production and big ups to Connect TV, for fulfilling quite a very huge production and international franchise. I think they doubled their viewership.
Sure.
So it was really big. And for me, to be honest, I've never been concerned about the cameras. It's work.
Yes.
It's getting into the field. It's digging in the mine and getting the gold. And that gold is someone saying, just from this experience, you've changed my life. Or from this experience, I'm not left the same. Or from this experience, I'm seeing life completely differently, or I didn't see things in a certain way. So I really put my head down and I grinded. So the 2000s would say. Yeah, I grinded with the hope that I would clock it.
Yeah.
And so remember when it came on air, we had already done shooting. But then we had the reunion, which is about 3 to 4 months later.
Okay.
So yeah, and then when the buzz came through, man, it was different. It was new. But yeah, it was exhausting dealing with different people and different energies.
I can imagine. And you've mentioned that they fulfill such a big production. But not only that, I think they also fulfill such a big need that the people have been looking for. We've seen it in the past where arranged marriages have always been a thing, and apparently a successful thing. And it is not just, even if the lights were off and the cameras were off, what they had done on that production and when you guys helped them do was actually a big need. I think the landscape at the moment, the dating landscape at the moment is in need of something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I would often say, and people will hear me say, dating is collecting data.
Yeah.
It's derived from the Latin word. And I think we live in a world of data and knowledge acquisition. But sometimes for a relationship or a marriage to be successful, it just takes unlearning. What are the things from our traumas which become triggers that are now shaped as abandonment fears? How do we then show up in our fears in the relationships? How do we then show up as the unhealed versions of ourselves? So I think, in India alone, there's only 1% of divorce based on particular stats. We know that in some tribes in West Africa, arranged marriages have preserved inheritances and wealths of different families. So it does work, but it works based on a contextual understanding of the individual and a deeper analysis of what they need more than what they want. And we see that unfolding very chaotically, but necessarily on the show.
Let's talk about that. There were people that had needs and wants and felt that their needs were not met. But I think we could observe that some needs were met, but not wants, right? People wanted people with nice toes, 6 packs, and nice armpits.
Yeah.
And my question had always been, where is the real line when it comes to what you need and what you want? What did you guys prioritize when you were looking at these people and matching them? What was more important?
I think the first thing is people need to understand, and I can't put any more emphasis on this point, that we didn't go look for cast members.
Yeah.
Cast members came and they wrote in. And so we had so many applications come in from 1,000, and then it had to, be reduced to about 300. You have your top 20 and so forth.
Sure.
So a lot of people then got cold feet. Some didn't make it and so forth. So we work with what we have. And I think the matchmaking process was, how do we match you closer to your criteria, but also based on observing the person that you are at a deeper level. What is it that might be suitable
for you?
For you,
Yeah.
For example, your lasagna sheets. There are some that you get at Checkers, ShopRite, or Woolworths. But Woolworths will give you the best because it's cooked with the different ingredient. But it doesn't change. Whether you use ShopRite or Checkers, it doesn't change the fact that it's lasagna, but the quality is different, right? Because of the strength of the ingredient.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I believe we paid. And of course, if I can put it in this light, everyone had limited abilities or capabilities. No matter how much you apply for a job, there'll always be some kind of default. Maybe you're great with timelines, but you're moody.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a good team player, but you procrastinate.
Yeah.
So there's not a perfect fit, but there is a best fit. Now the question is, do you make it work? And I think for me, that's the demand that was placed on the cast members. How well could you make something work with what you had?
Sure.
And they were stretched. They really were stretched.
Yeah.
They were challenged. Values were challenged. There were clashes and so forth. But for me, at the end of the day, no matter how well a relationship works or doesn't, show up with a common value, which is respect.
Yeah.
Gotta maintain that.
And speaking of values, when I saw one couple, I think it was Makoto and Nkululeko, the first thing I saw with them was a mismatch of values.
Okay.
Was that what it was?
You know what? I really believe that you have a point there because, Nkululeko showed up as someone that is an Orthodox Christian, very religious. But in the same breath, Makoto is also religious. It's just at a different avenue of what we call religion. A different kind of criteria or category of religion. So it's also a matter of couples were mirroring each other. Because even based on the laws of evolution and cause and effect, you attract who you are. Sometimes you accept who you are. So the partner that you date sort of measures your self-esteem. Your self-esteem tells us about your self-worth, how you view yourself. And the partner that you have is a mirror effect on what you're sort of dealing with or what you sort of internally fighting. And this is why I would always say, don't ever date if you're willing to trade yourself at a discount.
Sure.
Because sometimes we get into relationships where we end up in prisons negotiating our own parole. And what we need to then do is the higher you place yourself, you attract a similar value. The more you involve or invest in yourself, you get someone in a similar capability. I can't be a 90% and date a 30%.
Yeah.
There's going to be a clash. So if I want a 90%, I should be a 90 myself.
Unless if I really do think I'm a 30 deep down.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
So there'll always be things somehow that show the truth, even or no matter how hard you run away from that. Yeah. So I think that's what happened. People, Makoto said, I want to Aaron Pierre.
Yeah.
I want to Aaron Pierre.
Lights.
And I want someone who can take care of my son. And I mean, no judgment on the expectations that she has being in a relationship. But Nkululeko had a vision that she could not subscribe to. That's fine, because that's what happens, He ended up, showing payslips and payments and all of that he did try his best to do that. And at the same time, I just feel that, like I said at the reunion, he gave her a long rope to hang herself. I mean, you could see how frustrating it is to be in that environment. Why do you continue to stay or present yourself as nonchalant or as if it doesn't affect you when you could see a real problem? So in therapy and psychology, we call that avoidance, avoidance syndrome. And it's a serious problem where people deflect in conflictual situations.
And someone else that we saw deflecting was Tsepo.
Okay.
I actually had a personal reflective moment when I saw we'll call it an altercation between the two of them, him and Palisa. And there was a time, I think, where Palisa was looking very what's the word? I don't want to say toxic, but like in his face, bullying him because she was trying to get a point across. And what I was observing was that every time she tried to do that, even in the calmest way, Tshepo was just not engaging at all. So when you are saying nonchalance, you're reminding me of who I thought was quite nonchalant in the whole process. And I think even his girlfriend who came later in the reunion sort of alluded to the same thing, that he doesn't engage at the level at which you require him to engage.
Yeah.
And my question was, I wonder how much of that caused Palisa to be the person we saw her as, just trying to get her points across and maybe just trying to say, please care about this. Engage me to the full length of what this deserves, because you can't keep saying, oh no, this is not the platform for me to talk about this. I have nothing to say. Is that what we call nonchalance?
I think, there are words that we commonly use like nonchalant and gaslighting and narcissist when we don't really go deeply into what they mean. But what I can truly say is what appeared to be being nonchalant was actually a demonstration of somebody who struggles with emotional detachment or uses emotional detachment as a conflict resolution, and it becomes a serious problem. Contrary to popular belief, what we see as someone who is acting nonchalant is a demonstration of someone that struggles with emotional detachment. And they sort of lean onto emotional detachment as a means to respond to conflict. So we see a lot of that. Like there's a group of guys in society, whether through golf or through groove, will say, yeah, basadi barasa.
Yes.
Always you guys shout and then ronara didimala. No, ali didimale. The only issue is you don't know how to deal with emotions. So we've got to then investigate and go back to what has informed how you show up in conflict. And chances are it's linked to a trauma that has either made you the worst person, or it could lead you to being the best person if you choose to acknowledge that this is a problem. So yeah, and you know what? I really, with all my heart, was so confident with that matchmaking. All the experts were. Okay. Especially Tshepo and Palisa. It took a turn for the West. I do believe that in the beginning, there was an interest from both parties. But then as interest sort of decreases, so does the effort.
Of course.
And I think to date, we haven't really received an explanation of at what point did Tshepo check out to Palisa. Because I do believe Palisa loved Tshepo. She wanted to make it work. But there was a lot that happened which reminded her of a past that she was triggered. And maybe it would be good to outline some of these things that we might not understand visually on TV.
Yeah.
You find Nkululeko who then confessed on episode 3 that I struggled. I was rejected by my dad. I wanted to be accepted as a son. My mom moved on, got married to another man that not really, in a way, integrated in the family. So I had to fend for food. And so I depended on dating older women to make money. You find a Makoto who is a last born at home, is dealing with grief, loss of her mom, but also didn't understand that her dad was grieving too. It's just a different context. So what we see as somebody who is a spoiled brat is actually just bleeding from grief. We see a Nelisa who is a phenomenal woman, successful in her own right, well-educated, a hard worker, a true lover. Somebody who believes in love, believes in family and marriage, but has been robbed of that because of hurt. She was also rejected by her dad. So for her, holding on to a love matters. Is it toxic or not? It's a different conversation. But the acceptance and the approval of a man through love is very important to her, that kind of validation. We see a Themba who comes from a very traditional Tsonga background. And tradition then dictates that as a man, lead a family, have a house, take care of a woman. And he had that before with 2 kids. but, his heart had checked out. He then got to a point whereby I needed to be both ways. Is it right or wrong? It's a different conversation altogether. But he struggled with being honest. He struggled with transparency because he himself lost his father at a very early age. So he's always had to be a man, even as a teenage boy, So it's prematurely growing up too quickly and having to struggle with this facade and struggle with the family obligations that you're even afraid to disappoint somebody who you feel is not reciprocating what you're feeling. Yeah. Then you have a Balisa who was married early, never had a voice in her marriage and, had to fight her way through pain, through emotional abuse and so forth. And so here she is having found herself. Yes, is she triggered? Yes, are there things that are unresolved? Absolutely. Yeah. But being married again meant a new opportunity at love. And for her, she didn't want it to be a missed opportunity. Yeah. But it's also the wounds of the father, that were unresolved. You have a Tsepo as well, who very close to his mom, but devoid of his father because he never had a close relationship with his father because of what the father put the mother through and things as a boy child that he had to step up and defend his mother from. So he's got a parental wound there and he sort of uses food as comfort. Sure. It's the only thing that could sort of silence the noise, You have a Bongani who also struggled with rejection.
He wrote a book about it.
Rejection of a father, growing up around women, but also as the only boy, you're forced to step up. Yeah. Who do you cry to? Who are you vulnerable with no matter how much support you have? So even the rejection, Portia from the beginning was a trigger. And then he suffered the humiliation from it, which unfortunately dented his ego. And when you've been everything to everyone, but to a stranger, you can't be that. It's quite a hard pill to swallow.
When you're supposed to be the most intimate person with that stranger.
Absolutely. Then lastly, you have a Portia who, also has a daddy wound, a biological father. It was a very tumultuous relationship. And then you meet a man at the altar who looks like your father, has similar features, it's going to evoke a lot. So just like any Cheria Mostrating, about Kholitz, about Sheila. She was giving the guy a chase, but unfortunately it was trauma to trauma and they were both triggered in the early stages of their relationship that they could not relate with each other to a certain degree. So everyone has a background story.
If you found this conversation interesting and you also want to explore how you can get tools to heal from generational trauma or from relational trauma as well, this is a book that Katu Maestro has written. It's called Healing Out Loud, and it is breaking the culture of silence and healing generational trauma. You can get this book at your nearest bookstore, but you can also get a signed copy from a WhatsApp number that I'm going to leave in the link below in the description box. I'm going to drop the conversation that I had with Katu Maestro in the description so that you can also lean into the book and understand a bit better how to heal generational trauma and break the silence of Black families and while we heal together. Yeah.
And it's easy for us to trash talk on social media.
And I think we trash talk because we are projecting.
Okay.
I think everyone who's not an expert or is not coming from a technical place, who was giving an opinion, mostly was because they were projecting according to what they view life to be or what they're doing. For example, when Portia's situation was unraveling and women were up in arms saying, does this woman not see what she has? Because what do you mean you're not attracted to this person? They've got a trust fund. They've got a Porsche if it's theirs. They're a grounded guy. They look like they could love you right. They look like they, without a six pack, could raise your kids right. And even I had to reflect to say, what about Portia's decision to choose herself and to choose this one aspect that most of us don't think really matters, which is the physical aspect, is making me take this stance in my own personal life. Right? Is it because I think hunger is worse than physical attraction? So I saw that with people that were commenting that it mostly was projection. Everyone was blaming or applauding according to how they view life.
Yeah, I can agree, to a certain extent, which is why we have a huge population globally and even in the country watching reality TV. Yeah. People become so obsessed to the point whereby they personalize it, I remember Connie Ferguson was once interviewed and they said when she went to a mall, someone said, "Hey, Garabo, Silejwang," and almost attacked her, And so people just personalize reality TV because there's a certain an escape of self.
Yeah.
So we fail to go through a process of assertion where we face ourselves and work on who we truly are. But just on that note, I think we also a population of selective hearing.
Sure.
Portia did say that I have been hurt by the fact that I have gone against my values of what I want, and I was hurt by something that wasn't my choice in the first place through my marriage.
Sure.
So there's an association of not choosing self
in the
and
beginning.
choosing what you want in the beginning that was linked to that. But unfortunately, yes, the approach is wrong. And I just believe that just maintaining respect throughout is so important. Yeah. But it was an interesting challenge for all.
And I'm glad she apologized because she really did humiliate Bongani.
Yeah.
She did. I didn't realize how prevalent the father wound is. And I think now we can officially say we are in a crisis of fatherlessness and father wounds. Because we can't change this. And that's what I was saying in the beginning when I was giving the analogy that that's the mourning stuff, right? What my father did to me, how they rejected or embraced me can't be changed. It's the mourning stuff. But here it is with 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that are good looking and well-meaning, and this thing still comes to affect them at that age. When someone is holding the mirror right now and they are seeing that Libona, they've got that father wound that's contributing towards how they view a man, a woman, what sort of resolve do you then go into?
I think that's a very interesting question because the dynamics around the father wound are very broad.
Yeah.
One, it's very prevalent in the country. We have about statistically 2.4 million children that are not being raised by their fathers, but their fathers are alive. So, one of the biggest thing is, even scientifically, we're told that a child naturally bonds with their mother from the womb.
Yeah.
There's a essence of communication that takes place there spiritually, emotionally, and otherwise. So from the time they are born, meaning infancy to the age of 6, science tells us that a child needs their father because there are certain habits, behaviors, patterns, more, different approaches to life that they often use to equip the child. So a father is a necessity. The affirmation of a father is very necessary. Even statistically, we're told that, daughters that are raised by their fathers are most likely to be prominent CEOs or managers in senior positions in companies. Men are also more active in business, in leadership roles when they are affirmed by the father. So it's a serious wound that is affecting us. It's not just a physical absence, but it's also a spiritual and emotional absence where you find that, you're not going to sports matches, you're not fetching the kids at school. So it's a certain validation and affirmation that the voice of a father gives to a child in order to sort of steer them in the right direction. But we also have a pandemic of women that are denying children to have access to their fathers.
Yeah.
And those are things that we don't talk about because we are susceptible to women being abused, but there are also men that are abused as well. And I think we are taking advantage of some of the privileges and rights that we have as women.
Absolutely.
Men also have rights. There's a recent case that one of my lawyer friends resolved. A woman who denied the father access to a child. She's now been incarcerated for 6 months because she contravened the agreement that was given, or the verdict rather that was given by the court.
Yeah.
So we do have issues of the wound, and I think they're generational,
Yeah.
they're colonial, because we were told that a father must go and work to make sure that there's provision and protection in the house. But the true pandemic that is happening is we are raising men and women, or young boys, young girls who are depressed. We are raising broken children. We're repeating a cycle. That's why it's easy for you to show up as a woman, powerful in the boardroom, but powerless at home. And we have men that are committing suicide, who are strong in leadership positions, that have everything they need, but that validation
It's not there.
is not there. So my thing is, if he's not there, then who is around you that can step in as a father figure? That's what we need to look into, because there are parents who biologically, they make up your DNA and your anatomy, but spiritually and cosmologically, even psychologically, they don't have the toolkit to raise the purpose that you are, or the person that you are according to your purpose. So yeah, it's a serious wound that needs to be addressed, but it needs to be addressed through changed behavior. Children should not suffer at the hands of you remarrying somebody else, even stepmothers and step parenting. It's a serious problem.
No, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think it's more prevalent, like you're saying, but also more spoken about than the mother wound.
Yeah.
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 The mother wound is also there. That I think there's a lot of shame that's attached to admitting to talking about the mother wound. And you mentioned that there are sometimes places where, in corporates, for example, and in business, where people are having this woman-on-woman attacks and hatred. And I remember you saying that that could also be a wound that emanates from the womb. How does that work?
So, for me to see another woman as an enemy, it means I have a problem with how I see my mother. It means, ngesizulu would say, khona lobhlungu okuncelile
Okay.
from your mom through the breast. There's something that you've been fed through the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
For me as a woman to see my stepdaughter as someone who will break my marriage, for me to see another woman who is thriving and has potential, but I'm holding her performance appraisal and holding her promotion, is a problem. For me to envy my daughter, I think it's called feud syndrome. We have that in psychology where, a daughter feud syndrome. I think so.
Okay.
FEUD.
Yeah.
Goes way back.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on that one, but there is a syndrome around that where naturally a daughter will be her mother's enemy and a son will be her father's enemy. This is where the concept of mama's boy and daddy's girl comes from, because then naturally a son will defend and protect his mother if he sees a particular atrocity that's committed at home, and the daughter will defend the father. So then the children are then stuck in this tug of war that happens between the parents because of the syndrome. And then this is where things like you'd hear a mother say to her daughter, hey, uskatra gets a better because uile ko skolong. It starts like that. So it becomes a demonstration of jealousy. It becomes a demonstration of intimidation.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, where we then compete for a man's love. But you don't understand that the context is different. I'm the wife and that's the daughter. You know what I mean? So the love won't be the same. That's his bloodline. I'm not. So it's Nkariki spring that sort of takes over.
And I imagine that even as the daughter, I'm probably always going to see another woman as competition, because I've learned how to compete in my own household with my own mother.
Yeah.
For a man's love. Whether it's for a man's provision or intimacy, whatever it is, but for a man's attention and love. Sure. That's brutal. Did we see a mama's boy in Tepo?
Even these social connotations, they do come from somewhere. I'll tell you what, most of the crimes that are committed by men how men show up in relationship is because of the mother.
The mother wound. Yeah.
Being spoiled. Not even a wound.
Yeah.
Just being spoiled. Your mom approving things that should not be approved.
Yeah.
Your mom babying you.
Yeah.
You know. So with Tshepo, I think there was a huge dependency on his mother's approval. You know. And I can't go there because I don't know the context of that relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know what they had to go through, but everyone is attached to their parent.
Yeah.
If at any day, you know, I'm in a relationship and I need my father to lie, you know, for me, he will, because at the end of the day, I'm his child. Like, family is the most biased group of people that you could ever have. Because when you say this, they will support. Whether you're right or wrong, they will support. So family is very biased, you know. So I think I'll leave that for the population to answer. You know, but there is a close attachment to his mother. And whether the reasons are valid or not, it doesn't really matter. Because you can still be close to your parent, but still be true. You know. And you would expect him that if he's really close and rooted to his mom, he would have treated Abalisa different. Or they would have treated each other different.
And you know, when you're speaking about treating each other, one of the things that we saw was how they both trivialized what they shared intimately with each other in private and just put it out there to harm each other. I think Palisa used what he had told her about his mother and how women in his life have left him. And in an argument, she said, oh, but I'm the next one to do exactly what other women have done, which is trivializing what she knows about him. And he has done it as well, where he spoke about how her father said she's ugly. Right? And my thing was, how did we get here so quickly? These people just got married last week. Give me 5 years to take out the thing you told me, pillow talk, and throw it back at you and say, yeah, to your mother. But in 2 weeks, did you expect that it would be that intense that soon?
No. Nobody expected that.
Yeah.
No. But it also just shows how deep the mess goes. You know, how deep the pain is. How, you know, somehow someone shows up as someone who you are reminded of. I think both of them reminded each other of a past
certain people
that they promised themselves they'd never revisit. And in that moment, it took over. So, were they ready to be married? Maybe not. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe not. But the funny thing about life is how you show up means there's a dormant trait.
Okay.
In you.
Yeah.
You're not born a narcissist. You're not born manipulative. You know, you're not born an anxious person. You become that. Through trial and error, through experience as well, you know. So I think some traits are just dormant in individuals waiting to be activated.
Someone else to activate them. Sure. And some of those traits come out in the body. Right? I think we see them when people talk, when people react to things, but they can also be somatic. Where I think you spoke about how Tshepo sought comfort in food. And we sort of see how he even complained about this, meaning that there was something attached to how he looks as a result of how he copes with whatever he's coping with. What are some of the things that show up in someone's body when they have gone through trauma? Whether they see it or not, there's diseases that are connected to what someone has gone through.
Okay. So without using...
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be any of them.
Yeah, it's not Married at First Sight as a case study. I think the cancer is a very big one. Cancer does show up, obviously, as a malignant tumor, but also it does speak about abandonment somehow from either a maternal or paternal. So the abandonment wound, if you have issue with your eyesight, it means that you're someone that doesn't listen to your intuition. which is what we call your solar plexus. People with kidney failure, kidney dysfunction are people who hold on to resentment and worry a lot.
Sure.
People with liver dysfunctionality are people that hold on to anger. That's why they would associate whiskey with anger and then anger affecting your liver. People with pancreatic dysfunction usually have pancreatic cancer or have diabetes, are people that sort of, they don't have boundaries. They can't say no. This is why, with diabetes, it measures, obviously, your insulin is affected.
Yeah.
Which measures how your body absorbs sugar and so forth. So you've lost the sweetness of the world. So you're susceptible to not saying no. So you don't have boundaries. You're a yes person. You're a people pleaser.
So are you saying that being a people pleaser, a self-sacrificer, a lack of boundaries person can actually cause you a sugar diabetes?
Yeah, can cause you diabetes linked to your pancreas, which your pancreas balances a lot in your body. So you lack balance.
So
you lack balance. Autoimmune diseases attack women or people who are in unhappy marriages or unhappy families.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are those? What are autoimmune diseases?
So they vary, but the autoimmune disease, it affects sort of your nervous system. It affects how your body functions, how your nerves and your neurons communicate to the rest of the body. It's quite broad,
Would dementia later in your life be one of the things that are caused by staying in toxic relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Definitely could be a case that's worth researching. I know Harvard and Oxford are doing, incredible research on dementia and how it's associated to emotional ailments or psychological wounds as well. So very interesting study that's happening there. But people that have dementia or anything that is linked to the mind or the brain are people that are overthinkers.
Yes.
People that struggle with making decisions that are good for them. So absolutely over time, but it's caused by a myriad. Dementia is caused by a myriad of issues.
I heard keeping secrets is also one of them.
Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
I heard that because you over exhaust your mind with compartmentizing information that's not supposed to get out of the body, and so your mind works over time to just make sure that this one thing needs to stay here. And that's equivalent, I guess, if not worse, to overthinking. Because then you're making the mind to over function and keep something at the back of it wherever. I've read somewhere that's also a thing.
Yeah. And I think the primary basis of this notion is that any emotion that is not dealt with finds an expression in the body.
Yeah.
So it's important to find mechanisms to deal with trauma, to deal with conflict. And this is why we become such a violent society, because it's like something must come out, blood needs to spill to show how aggravated you are. And that's wrong. That's wrong. So we are a coping society more than we are a dealing society.
And we see it even with raising our voices when we need to raise an argument and bring up points across. You raise your voice, even if it's not spilling of blood, really. You raise your voice and it's equivalent to that. And speaking of ailments, you have done an incredible show on Mzansi Magic as Koqin. And that concept was interesting, messy.
Yeah.
And I think you've done impactful work there. Tell me about the basis of it.
Yeah.
What even happened for that production to even exist? What was the cost there?
Askopeni was a very transformational or transformative journey for me.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people. I mean, it's one of Mzansi Magic's first edutainment shows and one of its first impactful shows. And the primary basis of that show is how does the mess, how does the physical chaos represent emotional dysfunctionality or psychological wounds that could exist in a person. So people hoard, meaning they hold on to things. And so the show wasn't just about us cleaning up their space, but addressing the heaviness of the heart addressing what has caused this person to become this way. And the stories were incredible. Such a tight link, to a lot of the ones, that we shot. And maybe I can just give you two or three that stood out for me. The first was Gordon, from Soweto in Zondi. Gordon is a 44-year-old man who does suffer from a mental illness. And, Gordon is a hoarder. He just had a room and you could not enter that room. You had Ikanda Lenkomo, you had bricks, you had cardboard, and in his mind, he had found sort of solace in religion. And he would collect tins and say he'd build an altar out of those tins. But what stood out for me is how Gordon built a table that he sleeps under in his room. So he built a table from cardboard. And we then, discovered from the interrogation and tracing back that Gordon's father was murdered at the age of 6. Sure. He was 6 years old. So his dad was assassinated in front of him. And the first thing he did was hide under a table to prevent the gunshots from reaching him. So it's a trauma that is stored neurologically. And so because he can't explain it, and because, in Black communities, they don't believe in therapy, or they don't believe that this could affect a child, it started showing up, in the primitive years of his life and him growing up, until he had this mental illness. You have Meoleta, a 67-year-old whose mother also suffered from a mental illness.
Okay.
She was sold by her mother by the age of 9. And when her mom sold her to Afrikaans farmers in Bloemfontein. And she worked all her life, but she decided to go to school. So you see a 67-year-old that hoards books, curriculum books from primary school, encyclopedias, university books. And she read every book that we found in that house. From the kitchen, you couldn't even see how the bathroom looked like. It had yellow pages. It had primary school books. It was crazy, and she just said, all I wanted was to go to school. And so you see an inspiration gone wrong demonstrated in a picture. The last story was Memaria from Sebokeng, who hoards glass bottles. You get into a yard, everything is neatly packed, and you're thinking, Marawai khotletsebeana, and hoarders are very defensive and protective of the things that they hoard. She basically,
I thought
there
could be a thing called hoarding.
It's very big. Lastly, she collects, glass bottles.
Yeah.
And basically they made up the fence, Mochartinga.
Okay.
So as we walked in, we saw a depiction of her trauma through the bottles. And when we found out and dug deeper, we then realized that her son was stabbed with a glass bottle by the girlfriend. And where she hoards the bottles, that's where he took his last breath. So Asqoqeni was absolutely impactful. You will always see, and this is what I learned, that grief, if it's not dealt with, will eat you up. And we see that on the show. Yeah. People who have hoarded things as a representation of their grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have grieved my 7-year-old daughter for a very long time.
Sure.
She passed away at 7, about 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
And as you're talking, I'm trying to go into my mind to see what I have hoarded, right? And it's things that you wouldn't necessarily say is hoarding because they're a representation of her in my life. Like, my handbag always has her sock.
Okay.
Right? There's a pink jersey in my wardrobe. I don't know how many times I've moved houses ever since she passed away, but that jersey has always been in my wardrobes. And I'm thinking now, Hore, where is too far when it comes to hoarding? And where is acceptable grief? You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's very impactful. And I think I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I think it's something that so many people are facing and are struggling with, because there's a difference between mourning and grieving. Mourning is acknowledgement of the death, but grieving is learning how to live without them and find new rituals and new patterns, new systems of living that could sort of work for you and help you cope. You know, you're reminding me of a lady who called in on one of my interviews, and she said, I've had close to 14 miscarriages and I hoard baby clothes. You know, I keep them. The moment you find comfort in someone that no longer exists through a thing, then it becomes a problem. There's a difference between keeping it as a reminder. But the moment there is an attachment that is uncontrollable and that leads to some kind of instability, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And when you're saying that, I'm wondering if it happened that one day I found Auntie Ankile all the socks in every bag. I did like healing.
You'd lose it.
I wonder if I would lose it, because maybe that's what would determine if this is just a representation of a memory of a person or if there's something attached to it that's more deeper. I wonder. Maybe she should try it.
I really think we need to, and that's why spirituality is so important. Because you find context and understanding in why the person passed. You find a deeper meaning than what meets the eye. You find different ways of remembering the person, whether it's through pot plants, whether it's through going to the ocean, whether it's through writing, whether it's through just having a candle with their picture and lighting it when you think of them. You know, spirituality affords us the opportunity to express our grief, unlike religion, you know. So, it's important to keep that memory. But the moment the attachment becomes toxic, even for you, the moment it competes with your way of functioning just in life, then yes, it becomes a problem. Because grief can make you spiral out of control. Yeah, I was completely, you know, disabled for about a year or two, you know, after losing my mom and my grandmother, same day, 4 hours apart, you know.
I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you. So just having 2 caskets in the yard, losing your best friend after that, you know. So yeah, we go through that, but it's also finding comfort in the impact that they may have in your life.
Yeah, sure. I just had a knot in my stomach.
Okay.
And I think that's also why these conversations are important to me, especially linking them to when I wanted us to speak about the shows. It's because they're entertaining from the surface. You know, at the surface, they're entertaining. When we think or look at people and what they are giving us as drama, we think, you know, this one is this one is that. You're able to sit there and be the audience, Costadia, and say, I could kick the ball better. I could refer this thing better. But when you sit and hold a mirror at whatever it is, entertainment that you see on TV, and you really just say, but what about this is me? And what about this is the next person? Then there's more opportunity to heal. Because I think we would be wasting our time if we were not putting mirrors in these things that we watch. So thank you so much for engaging me and the Legacy Collective on this. It was important that we take what people are seeing as drama and entertainment and I think I said this to you, help someone heal. Help someone to mirror themselves and see how they in their own lives can get better and can build better legacies. Because when you choose to heal, you are taking that healing as legacy to the next generation.
True. And you know, Khanyisa, I think we must never forget, healing does not discount the wound. Healing doesn't say the wound never existed. It just says, here's a puncture and let me patch it. Because the patching is important for the arm or the hand to function again. So the moment we hold on to the fact that here is this wound and it's painful, and we keep scratching it, you're not affording it the process of, you know, mitosis that needs to take place for new cells to grow.
Yeah.
So I think people are misunderstanding healing as forget where you come from. No, but we're saying recover from what hurt you.
Sure. Recover from what hurt you. Thank you for that. Thank you. I did it. I said it before that I'm having a knot. I didn't think I would, but I think the grief conversation touched a nerve there. But thank you, and I hope someone else has found this conversation valuable. And I know that they were probably here for the drama, and I hope we gave them something valuable to look at themselves and heal better.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sis. Appreciate
And this has been the Legacy Collective with Khanyisa. I wish you grace, and you know I love you. Bye.